Hello folks, and welcome to Retro Power Uncut episode 191, and hopefully we won't have any technical glitches this week. We shall see. We'll hopefully not be suffering from any IT problems, but we're going to start with the Interceptor, and lots of things in the background, things you don't really see that we need to do on the car that aren't all that camera friendly have been going on. So one of them would be this piece here. Stu's working on the front wheel arch shields, which prevent all the dirt being thrown to the back of the inner wing structure. The inner wing structure on a Jensen Interceptor is, I'm trying to think of a nice way of putting it, bloody horrible. It's probably, it's just horrible. It was basically like the car was designed leaving a big gap, and then somebody fished around in the scrap bin and wanged some bits of metal in the space. However, the canvas has been painted and we're kind of working with it on that one. It is a standard Jensen in that area, and much as it looks a bit clumsy, I can't really see a valid reason to spend a customer's money changing it when it will do the job. But what we do need to do is put some shields in to prevent the area around it getting completely destroyed by stones and dirt, because this car is going to be used and do quite a lot of miles, so we want to try and preserve it as well as we can in that area. So to that end, Stu has been busy making the shields, which are in 5000 series 2mm aluminium, so we've got plenty of stone chip resistance there. Keep the weight down a little bit with the aluminium, but it's tough stuff, that 5251 aluminium. So we'll make those in that, and then they'll also have a stone chip, they'll have a U-Pole Raptor over them as well. Yeah, Stu's getting those done. This side needs a bit of shape, which he's just started putting in to clear the blister around the heater fan area, the heater fan bowl, if you like. On the heater fan bowl front, Stu has and Luke have been working together actually quite a bit on that. I'll let Luke explain his side of it, but there's been further work on the ducts, getting our ducts in a row as we have been for the last couple of weeks. There's been some more duct work going on, and so we now have the engine air intake duct and the HVAC intake duct work all in place. So that's all sort of coming together, and yeah, the awkward bits of it are done now, which is a good position to be in. There were various simpler bits to go in between, which are largely flex duct and the mountings for the flex duct, which need putting in place. But the actual tricky bits of the 3D printed parts and the CAD design parts, I think are pretty much just about there now. I'm just not sure whether, the cutout's done for it, the actual duct's not in, but we're getting there with that. While we were working around the front of the car, I had a little talk with Stu in terms of plumbing, because we needed to work out the HVAC, the air conditioning refrigerant line routing, and we've come up with a routing that we think works, which will be routed under the slam panel, because we've got to put two lines across the cooler in the front of the car. We go for the compressor is that side, the HVAC unit is that side, so we've got to cross over and back. Now obviously we have a cooler matrix in here that's conveniently or inconveniently 50-50 really. Both the ports are on this side, one of which needs to go to the compressor, the other one of which needs to go to the HVAC unit. So we've got a line that's got to cross over to get to the cooler, and we've also got a return line to the compressor from the HVAC unit that's got to cross over. We're going to route these under here to keep the clutter out of the engine bay. They're going to be routed across there just to save it. It'll very quickly look like spaghetti in the engine bay, and all being well, we'll hopefully do a lot of that in hardline in-house, because in the background, you may remember in previous episodes I mentioned Bobby had designed an AC line swaging tool. Well, Jonathan Plumridge at PBE CNC is currently in the latter stages, I think now actually. He sent me a message the other day and things were progressing well. I think he's in the latter stages of machining all the pieces of tooling for that job. We then need to get a couple of them hardened. The actual die sets we've got to get hardened. And the pins we've got to get, I think he still had to make the pins. They'll be CNC turned, and then once they're turned, they're going to be hardened as well. Possibly ground, possibly we'll just polish them, I'm not sure. It depends on the turn finish, but I think he'll get a pretty good turn finish, we might not actually grind them. So that will mean that we can then swage the lines in-house. I've picked up a little 240 volt powered hydraulic pump from an old bit of equipment I picked up in an auction. So we're going to create a rig in-house for doing that swaging, because I can't seem to buy one from anywhere. And it won't have cost us a fortune, and it means we can do proper aluminium hard lines in-house, which will just look really neat. So that's hopefully what we're going to do in this. It'll still have to have junctions in, because it's quite a convoluted shape, and we'll have to have a couple of bulkhead unions and some various flexible sections. But we'll show you all that when that's all complete. There's no point waffling on about it now, gesticulating at things, because I'm not really going to explain a lot there. And then, yeah, further to that, the other progress on this has largely been CAD related. There have been various bits of CAD progress in terms of ducts, intakes and the like, but I'll let Luke talk about that because there's not really much to see on the car, and it's not really metal shop related. I think that pretty much buttons up where we're at in terms of the metal shop side of things on the Interceptor. So moving on from that, we will go to the Jag. I'm going to stand at the front because I think we should have a fair bit of footage of the detail work on this. Matt's working away here actually on the sill right now. He has finished the floor. You saw the floor being started work on last week. He's got the floor all finished and in on the offside, driver's side, which is now this side because the car's upside down obviously. So he's got all that floor in. He's got the front toe board section sorted out, tidied up and dealt with and back together again. Split that, took it apart, cleaned it up inside, smacked the dents out of it and got it all looking the right shape again. Then put all that back together again. So that's looking nice now, and we can get some wax oil inside it and stop it going all grotty inside again. I don't think that hadn't gone mega thin anywhere, had it? That was all right. Yeah, that was not too bad actually. We were a bit concerned it might have got quite rusty inside because there's a bit of a cavity in these. It's the equivalent of, the opposite hand of this section. This one's equally dented to hell here as well. People just jack up on it and miss this jacking point and hit this bit, and that's obviously got the sign of a trolley jack printed into it there. So yeah, Matt's cut this lot off, and we kind of thought there might be quite a lot of grot inside there because there's a hole in there, you know, double skin sections and whatever, but no, actually it's not too bad. So we've survived there. You start to see the scheme of work with the sills looking at this upside down now, and these lovely previous pigeon excrement repairs that have been done, as is always the way on these things. Yeah, Matt's working on that side. I'm going to wander around there again, just keep my visual cues going. So he's got the inner sill mended, so all this has been TIG welded in. I think Matt was actually TIG welding that in on the video last week, getting that lot TIG welded in there. He's got the sills shortened. I think I mentioned it before. These are long wheelbase Series 3. Retract that. They're Series 3 XJ Saloon sills. All Series 3s are long wheelbase. So these are a long sill. All XJ Coupes are short wheelbase, even the later ones. So these sills are too long. Now I speculated about where we might need to shorten that, and that we might need to shorten it around in the region of the B-pillar and various other convoluted things. Matt's just had a sort of analyse of the curves in it all and said actually we'll just cut the back off, it's much easier. So he's done that, he's cut the back off the sill, got the ends refinished and sorted out to fit, so that everything lines up. And then he's done a bit of work on the end caps. The end caps as bought, I'm just looking around so if I can see one, but I can't. Ah, they're down there. Let me pick up an end cap and gesticulate wildly with it. Yeah, these end caps are not much good really. They're not really quite the right shape. So again, Matt's going to make these to fit. Once we've got the sill on and we make sure the sill's the right curvature, and we're going to use a bit of eyeball on that, because short of having, you know, exact CAD data, which wouldn't have existed as what these sill shapes are supposed to be, they're inevitably a little bit nondescript when they're supplied. That's a Jaguar original part. There's always, on a pressing like that, there's always going to be some relaxation of the part over time, and the curvature is never going to be quite right. So we're going to use a bit of, obviously fit it to the car, and then use a bit of eye to make sure the curvature flows nicely on the sill. Once we've got the curvature flowing nicely on the sill, then we're going to do the end caps, because these don't really fit very well. So Matt's going to crack on with that. While he had the sill off, he came up to see me this morning to say did we want to put some reinforcement in it, because these sills are just a big empty box. And it's a very good shout by Matt. Sticking these in, as he said, E-Types have it, why not put it on this? It's a very good point, and it's very well made. It would actually strengthen the car up quite a bit, because you're tying a fairly fundamental piece together here. You've got a chassis rail, tied across this box at the bottom of the floor pan, which ties into the corner, and then that feeds load up the A-post. So you've got quite a nice load path through your rail up into your pillar and your inner wing there. So it does make sense to do that. And then he's put another one in at the bottom of the B-post, which again ties the car together nicely, ties into the B-post, gets a bit of strength in the region of your seatbelt mountings, which never hurts either. So that's all good. He's got the inner sill piece together, got some primer inside, got some epoxy primer inside it. So the next step will be sorting out the piece of sill that goes in here, which is still attached. Is the old bit still attached to the old sill, is it? The bit in here? Ah, yeah. Oh, you managed to salvage that, you reckon? Oh, awesome. Cool. Yeah, so we've got, that's the piece. This is the difference between a normal saloon sill and a coupe sill. Is this bit here, there's this little dimple here, which is for the B pillar on a four-door saloon. We've got to sort that out. But then at the back, there is this piece, which sits inside the sill. And then this is a drain tube that basically lets the water come out at the bottom. This sits up in here, and that basically catches the water that drains into the quarter panel from the rear opening quarter light window and drops it out the bottom of the sill so it doesn't fill up in the bottom of the sill with water. What actually happens is that gets blocked, that fills with water and then rots the bottom off the mechanism that operates the quarter window. We won't go there because on this car, amazingly, it hadn't done. But basically this piece goes inside here, so Matt's going to then modify the sill to accept this piece, repair this piece, and then this will be grafted, this will be all repaired and sorted out, and this will be grafted into the back of the sill, and then the sill will be fitted. So that this sits, as I say, underneath there, something along those lines, and drains the water out of that area. So that's good progress. Things are coming together really quite well on that. In parallel with that, Tom's working on the back end of the car. He has finished the boot floor. I think we mentioned that last week. He's done a nice job of making these the sections that go either side here. So, as if by magic, I've actually picked the right things up. After fumbling around for a while, hopefully I've picked the right things up. No, I haven't picked the right things up. I picked the wrong bloody things up. I'll get them the right way around at some point. We'll try again. As if by magic, I've picked the right things up. So, just to very quickly show you, that goes there, a little something like that. A little bit of tweaking and bending and whatever. There's a few little adjustments, but that basically goes there. And that's going to support the end of the balance. And then this panel, again, I've probably picked the wrong one up. Oh, yes, I have picked the wrong one up. Yeah, I picked the wrong one up again, I think. Basically, that fills that gap in there somewhere. But I'm not going to try and demonstrate that now because I'm just going to pick the wrong one up constantly. But Tom's made those two side sections. He had a bit of a battle with the dimples. They didn't really form that well, so he's formed them separately and just TIG welded them in. So yeah, they're done. These two panels here are done. He's now set to on the back end and dissecting the this rear section around the bumper mounts. The bumper mounting originally sat in here. There's quite a lot of rust around it, as you can see. So he's unpicking all of the end of this panel here, gradually getting all that out so that he can repair this, clean all this area up and then refabricate the bumper mounts from new steel so that we've not got a big rot trap in there, because that was an area where we weren't happy that we could clean that out well enough to just leave it. So he's dismantled it all so we can clean all that out and get a really nice job done of that and get it all put back together nicely. So he's pretty much stripped this side out. He's going to do this side, and once this side's done, then strip that side out. So we've got a piece to copy on the opposite side of the car. And to also state the obvious, the car's now currently propped up on a stand there at the moment just to keep it all supported while this is apart so it's not bending around. So yeah, that's the next mission really, is to organise this rear valance, get all this taken apart, unpicked, rebuild the bumper mounts with a slightly modified state, and then we're going to make the rear valance a bolt-on piece rather than a welded-on piece because of the incredible rot trap in here. I did say we did talk about making a panel here bolted. We've changed tack on that now. That's going to stay welded in. That's actually an oversight on my part, I forgot. But that's not really a big problem because we've decided actually it would be better making the valance bolt on anyway, because it will mean we've got access to this area, which would have been hidden still if we'd done it the other way. And means we can zinc metal spray all of the inside of this. So we've got absolutely no rust, because originally this was only primed from the factory and it's got surface rust to show it. It's an area where water can get in, struggles to get out, dirt can get in, struggles to get out, and there's no coating really on it. So it's a real rock trap, that part, on an XJ saloon. So it'd be nice to get rid of that. Make the valance bolt on. It'll be bolted down the sides where the corner cappings bolt on, and I'm going to put some bolts into the back of some captive nuts into the back of the boot floor, so that can all be bolted into place. And then we'll put some bump strips in here so it doesn't buzz or rattle on those. So yeah, we're pretty pleased with how all that's going. That's where we're at on XJ Saloon. So next we're going to spin around and talk about the V12 E-Type. I'm going to run around here, give Jarkle a chance. So I think on this one, I'm going to hand over to Bobby, because he knows a lot more about what he's doing on this than I know what he's doing. He's working on the hinges and the door control mechanisms, and I'm just going to hand over to Bobby and let him explain all that for you.
Hello folks, Bobby's here again. Yes, yeah, so this week has been pretty much steady progress with the door hinges. I moved into the offside side to the door hinge. Obviously it's a mirrored image of the near side, and I start fabricating myself a jig so I can replicate the hinge on across, but mirrored, and it turned out to be quite difficult and too time consuming. So I just decided to go and use a modern technology. So the 3D printed jig. So what we did is we scanned the near side hinge, and then the guy scanned it, 3D model it, and then they create the jig on the existing hinge, and then they just mirror the jig, so we can create the offside one, and they 3D printed it, and it just worked the thread. Yeah, so George did that for me, and I literally finished early today. The hinge that's the hinge assembled already, but you can see that's the part that's going on the door. We have this plate plasma cut it, so it's I got a couple of holes, like a double pinhole, so this was in here on top, and what I needed is to locate the exact dimensions, you know, in space, the tube which is for the door pin. So I had literally just this plate, the tube supported where it should be, and then I just joined them together. And also we had a little thing here for where the rack for the auto opening mechanism is bolted to, or door check strap, whatever. So we had this as well here, and it was just a matter of just joining all the bits. And I had it yesterday fitted. I think Jamie has a footage of both doors open. Yeah, so it's all good. Both doors are opening in the same angle within probably 5 mil difference, I would guess, in the heights. I just measure when fully open. I had the laser, because our floor is not so flat. I had the laser and measure from the laser to the corner of the door, so both doors are swinging out exactly the same angle, 14 degrees. Yes, so that's that with the hinges. Yeah, I had this. That's the other side of the gas strut is hooking into this bracket. This bracket is living inside the A-pillar. Again, this is just reutilizing. There's an existing swage on the inner A-pillar, so I pretty much just used the recess there and poking the gas strut in. So that's the bracket. Again, it's just temporary. Probably that will be a machined billet piece, I would guess. Yeah, so that's pretty much it with the bracket this week. Yeah, I'm just little things, and they take time. But yeah, I just wanted to pick up on a few comments from the last week's video. Great comments, by the way. I'm always exciting to see the level of knowledge the people who watch our videos has. Yeah, so there was a few. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just had a few notes just to remind me. Again, I'm not going to mention usernames and names there, because some of them are very difficult. But yeah, so yeah, one of them was actually very nice, and it got me thinking. And I went last night just to research for myself. That's the Porsche Panamera They call it variable door stop thingy. So the gentleman who mentioned this was you open the door and leave it there, and it stays in every single position. Your choice how to open the door, and it just stays there. It's not like the regular check stop, which has just two notches. And yeah, they use a very simple, I think it looks like a gas strut, but I think it's just a damper, and it's got 2 rods and a cylinder. The cylinder is not attached to anything. 2 rods are attached, one to the door, one to the A-post. And I think that the whole mechanism principle is just a pressurized 2 chambers, two pistons, and probably a divider in the middle, and the oil is going through an orifices, because I watched also a user guide of Porsche's webpage how to use this variable door stop mechanism. So they say you open the door, keep it for a second, and then leave it, and it stays there. So that makes me think that this is just a damper where you pressurize one part of the chamber, and for that second the pressurized oil managed to go through the orifices to the other part of the chamber and equalize both sides, both chambers with the same pressure, and obviously that keeps both struts kind of in equal pressure, and keeps the door where you left it. Again, I might be wrong, but that's as far as my research went last night. But no, it's impossible to incorporate this purely for space restrictions. I've got a mock-up build that's just for me when I fabricate it. This is a dimensionally correct strut that we're using. So you can imagine, this is my hand. You can imagine how small it is, and this just barely fits in. So we went the strongest ones that we use for them are 400 Newton meter. And yeah, so that's the strut we're going to use to assist. Again, this is just to take the weight off the door, nothing more. And yeah, so it's impossible to incorporate the system. So that was good shout, by the way. I never thought about that. Someone mentioned about the door hitting other cars or pedestrians or whoever is open as close to the door. This is incorporating the original controller that came with the kit. We're going in a direction to not use that, I think, but we can do everything with the PDM. Someone mentioned about time of flight sensor, which is which the original kit actually is using, I think, an infrared sensor. From the looks of it, it's infrared proximity sensor, so it's nearly the same as the time of flight sensor. Yeah, so when the door is about 6 inches off any object, it stops itself. That's what the original controller is doing with the door. And yeah, also the door's got a current sense, which if you trap your hand, it will stop. It will not try to push it in, or in case it hits something, again, if there's a fair resistance, it will stop. Again, we'll replicate this probably with the PDM. It's just very simple logic of monitoring the current and trigger it. Yeah, so that's another question was the reinforcement of the whole A-pillar and the whole door, because everything is kind of hinged in that area here and here. And yeah, so the whole A-pillar structure is actually very strong as it is, and will probably reinforce the door maybe inside. Again, someone mentioned in other comment about changing the door skin on that side, because that has been damaged at some point, the door and the quarter. Door is not severely damaged, it's just a little dink in it. But I think we might replace the skin, probably both skins. And once we have the skins off, we can just assess if it's necessary to reinforce the front of the door more or less. But as they are currently, is okay. Even if you lean on them, even with the original hinges, when you lean on them, they have a little spring on them. It's just the way they are. Yeah, so that's two comments. Someone mentioned about the doors not opening in enough angle. They are actually do. So compared to how the original ones open and how ours open, height-wise, we are gaining about nearly 7 inch if you measure from the floor to the bottom edge, outer edge of the door. It might not sound much if you say like as that much, but actually in appearance of the car, it means a lot. And like with the car and all the designs, even 5 mil here and there in the actual body makes a massive difference. So for us, this is a massive difference. The other thing is we gained 100 mil more opening of the door, so it's more space for going in and out compared to the original one. So yeah, so on that question, yeah, we initially had them really going quite a bit higher, but then they hit the bodywork in the front, so it's a no. Yeah, so that's for that question. Yeah, someone mentioned about using doing going doors. No, that was never intended to go for them, and I just that's just what the client wants, and that's what we do. So yeah, thank you very much for the viewers, and it's really nice comments. So yeah, keep watching, and we'll keep making, so it can keep you happy. Yeah, I'll see you next week then, and have fun.
So thank you for that, Bobby. Excellent description, and much better than I could do. And it's good to get a bit of interaction with the audience as well, in that we get some very on-point questions asked and points made by our audience, who are obviously pretty well educated in the type of work we do. So it's very interesting getting that bit of interaction going. Moving on from that, we'll wander this way. I've got one little bit more to pick up out here. Which is a little bit of testing we were doing, in that we've not done vast amounts of composite work in-house previously, and as you will be aware, we use KS composites for a lot of our work, and we still will be using KS composites for a lot of our work. However, some of the simpler work, we have decided we're going to do some of that in-house, given that we now have the CNC router, which is fundamentally doing a lot of interior parts and a lot of interior work. However, we now have the capability to also make mold tools, fairly simple mold tools. I don't want to start trying to take anything on that's too complicated, but we have a couple of mold tools, a couple of pieces that we need to make from composite. So we did a little very rough and ready trial. I did a little very rough and ready trial last week, just to see, because I wanted to just trial a prep and release method. So mold tool machined out of some laminated up sections of MDF, polyester sprayed, very quick and dirty job really, just router out, very quick 10-minute sand, polyester over it, probably an hour spent sanding the polyester on that, and then wax, 5 coats of Carnauba wax on, polish off, wax on, polish off 5 times. Again, doesn't take long when you're doing it with another job. And then sprayed PVA release over that. I know there's lots of different release methods, but I decided wax and PVA is probably going to be one of the best for the type of work we were going to be doing. And then a very, very, very quick and dirty laminate up using just wet lay, fiberglass. I didn't really have the right mat for this, I only had 300 gram mat, so I put a bit of tape in it as well because that draped a little bit better. No gel coat, no nothing, just resin straight into the mould on that, just to try it. We got good release, everything's come out fine. We've got the odd little pocket on the corners, just because there's no gel coat in there, nothing to stick to. I'm using ridiculously thick mat for the first layer, so very happy with how that came out. We got a good release, which was the main reason for doing the little trial. So moving on from that, we're going to be making a couple of parts for the Allegro projects using some in-house tooling, which would be nice to do. We like to do things in-house where we can. As I say, that's no slight on KS. We're very pleased with their work, and we will certainly be carrying on using them for all of our more complex work. It's just that it's quite nice to be able to do some of the simpler stuff in-house. Cuts down on the lead time a little bit, in that KS are very busy and the lead time is quite long to get some of these parts made. If we can do them in-house, it just shortens that lead time a little bit. So that's where we are on that. I think at that point I'm going to hand over to Mark to show you some of the actual real body shop work going on. And so yeah, over to Mark.
All right, thank you, Nat, out there, thank you. It's not really there, it's not even recorded his bit yet. It's all smoke and mirrors. Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors, that bit. Okay. So this week, busy week this week. Oh, me and Gaz, been without Steve. Not really badly noticed, but been less whinging, crying, emotional talk. Lucky gets at the TC, isn't he? Pow, pow, pow. 1 year, we're going to go, ain't we, go? All right, so yeah, less of the waffle. So, car 1, which is car 2, is now, we're masking up for high build, because we've seal coated all the polyester in, keyed all this up, blocked it. So this is going for high build primer this afternoon, and we'll whip that out, 320 it, 800 wet and dry, and then yeah, the steaming heads and paint, but first we'll have to Raptor underneath. Inside, Jamie's probably got footage of that. He's got the black polyurethane direct. He's got footage there, he don't need to come over. Let's save his legs. So yeah, this one's done. This week also got car 2, which is car 1. All the panels are done here in a sealer coat. They've all got to be prepped now for high build. And then, if we follow it this way, the twin brother or sister, we don't want to be sexist in any way. In here, this one, been sealer coated. So then we're going to get this one out now, swap it with the other one. And this has got to have the prep work that one's got. We'll get this prepped inside, sealed underside, and then primer the engine bay. It just feels like deja vu every day with these two. So yeah, busy this week. Can't wait for the weekend. So that's it for this week. See you next time.
So thank you very much for that, Mark. And I think at that point, there'll be lots more to explain in up and coming weeks. But I think for the moment, I'm just going to hand over to the assembly shop and see what's going on in there.
Thank you, Nat. Right, I'm going to start with Project 1, which is on the ramp over there. I think last week we just handed it over. I'd heard the initial feedback from the owner who'd been out on the road in it. Then Monday we went to Silverstone. I must apologise, I've not got any footage of that. I know it's a bugbear almost of our channel is that we tend to never have much footage of the finished cars being used. And in all honesty, it's just because we tend to be in such a sort of frantic endeavour to get everything ready and handed over that we just don't find the time to get that footage at the end. Now, what I'm definitely going to try extremely hard to do with multiple cars going forward, but it's probably the first being Project 1, is actually get some finished usage videos. However, in those instances, it's actually better, well, not from my channel, but better from the viewer's point of view, if we can get somebody else to do like a really nice polished video. So I'm going to try and get one of the usual suspects in terms of very polished, finished car videos online. I've got somebody particularly in mind at the minute. So hopefully we'll get some video of that, or it might not be on our channel, but we will endeavour to get some ourselves as well. So yeah, it went really well. Didn't do a huge amount at Silverstone. It was a busy track day and the customer had several cars he was taking and driving. So just did a few laps in this. His mate did a few laps in the car. Gave us a little bit of feedback, but in all fairness, the car is, because it's been built primarily as a road car, a track like Silverstone is just not a place it's particularly comfortable because it's massive long straights, very fast corners. That's not where a car like this is really at home. It's really at home for B roads, smashing down little twisty B roads. So there wasn't a lot we could prove from the session at Silverstone. However, it is just nice that the car's being used. I mean, I reckon it must have. God, have you seen how many miles are on this now? I'm guessing must be 700, I would guess. Yeah, that would be my guess. We'll have to look. We handed it over with exactly 500 miles on it. Now I know he'd done 100 and something miles before Silverstone. I was a little bit around Silverstone. I think it was then driven to Tuthill Porsche. And then it was transported back from Tuthill to here. So I'm guessing it's probably got about 700 miles on it now. And yeah, good list of feedback. Most of it was already things that we knew, because we knew there were a few little finishing off jobs still to do on the car, because the plan was always for it to come back after Silverstone. The big one we're tackling at the minute is just the NVH. The thing I mentioned before that was borderline and to the point of it being subjective is the sort of vibration or exhaust resonance transmission into the body shell, which I was kind of like, we'd improved it with the flexi and the exhaust. It still wasn't overly pleasant at higher revs, but it was down to the client to sort of decide what they thought. And he agreed it could do with dulling down a bit just for daily use. So we're doing a revision on the exhaust system. We're going to put a middle box in it, quite a long but very slim middle box, changing the back box to being a much wider one that's oval and actually crosses over internally, so it goes in one side out the other. And we're probably going to do a straight back tailpipe, because I think the angled down tailpipe, although it looks cool and subtle, I think it does give some kind of exhaust pulsing underneath the shell, which resonates through the shell quite a bit. So we're going to do a revision on the exhaust, which I think will sort that, and then the rest of it's just ticking through little minor things that we were already really aware of. So jobs that were outstanding on our final build list. But yeah, it's great to no major problems with it so far. Alex has been analysing all the data logging, so we've got big data logging capacity on the Motec ECU, which means we can look at probably the previous hour-ish of driving at any time, and see all the data from every channel on the ECU, which is really interesting. And yeah, he said everything was looking fine, no concerns there. So yeah, just smash through these remaining jobs, and then I think that's going to be back out by the end of this month, ready for some miles. So that's project one. Churchill, looking absolutely awesome over there, I have to say. I think we've just been around and dusted the cars, so it's looking particularly good. Anthony's been on with that. He's just been, in preparation for the start of the build work on that, he's been going around and just tapping out all of the threaded holes on the shell that have got sort of some paint build up in, just clearing all that out, so everything will just bolt together nicely once we start on that. And we've been just deciding on a few of the interior colours. So we've chosen an interior leather colour. We've ordered some hides of leather, because we're going to start doing some trials for the stitch patterns, etc., on the seats on that. And Richard's been stripping down the Jag XK8 seats we're using in that. So they tip. They're a two-door seat, so they tip forward, but they're also got a lot of electric adjustment on them. So we've been stripping down and starting to pattern for those. So we're just getting the early stages of interior upholstery ready on that. And then the other thing Richard's been on with, I'll let him talk about actually, it's been the Camaro door cards. So I'll just hand over to Richard and he can tell you a bit about that.
So, how's it, everybody? Good to see you again. So this week, yeah, was pretty much all Camaro door cards, pretty much the whole week. It's been quite a journey. As you can see, I don't know if Jamie can get this in. So we're getting closer and closer to actually hanging them on a car, and they're starting to take shape and look really good. Just a lot of work trying to get all the little panels to fit in exactly. Like these aren't going to be routed or 3D printed. It's all me and these two babies here trying to make snug fits and flushes, and we want some like definition, playing with heights on the panel but still keeping it as flat as possible. As you know, we had to revert back to more of the original design, but just make it a bit retro. So basically how we achieved that was the original door cards was just vinyl that was high frequency welded with the pattern in it, and then with the little strips. I don't have them here, but they pretty much look something like this, and they were all over. So basically what we thought is, let's play with different materials and different colors. So we've got some Alcantara, we've got the brown leather, we've got some black leather. So that gives a nice feel to, not too much, but just gives it that retro power element to it. And basically how I achieved this, and to get these nice crisp lines on all these little patterns that you see here, is basically to make it in two skins. So you've got your original skin on this door card, and then what we've done is we've used a foam board. The reason why I use this is because it's hard enough to keep its shape, but soft enough for me to work it by hand and very accurately, better than the plastics and ABSs and metals that's out there. This is just a lot quicker and easier, and you get a good accurate result. So basically what we've done is take your card, cut your patterns out, and then you make little inserts, and this is going to give us to play a little bit with depth. So one will be ever so slightly a little bit higher than the next one. It also look like it sinks into another panel, which is going to give it a good, very good, cool element. And then what we're also going to do is use the original, Still decide, that's in the future, still decide where we're going to put what material here, and we're going to consult with the customer as well, you know, to just make him also part of this so that we don't make all the decisions. We're going to also have these little billet strips in keeping with the original, and what we've done is, this is a rear, I'm hoping Jamie can get that, so effectively, this is this one, sorry Jamie. This one's this one, so basically that shape there effectively will be cut off over there, and once this is a nice shiny billet bit, that will then drop in there, and again we'll get that nice, it fits in rather than sits on top, and then obviously fastened, and then that becomes part of this pattern, but just a nice finisher strip, which will be a very cool element. On these ones, we added a bit of texture, shall I say. The seat, I'm sure you guys have seen in the videos, the seat have got these horizontal lines. So we thought, oh, let's transfer some of that design onto the door cards. So we put some horizontal lines on in proportion with the old door card, and that was also a bit of a journey to get there, to the method of what we're doing, and it ended up being a bit of a tuck and roll almost situation where you could just take a flat piece of leather, put some lines on it and stick it on this piece of card, and then, but that will leave you with a very flat panel. And what we've done is we've actually done this, and we created these little bumps, if I can call it, nice straight grooves. It looks beautiful. Jamie will probably get some close-up shots for you guys, and then you'll be able to see a little bit better. And the way we did that was to experiment, basically. So we knew that just simply stitching some lines on the leather is not going to work. Cal has built so many cars, well, the Retropart team has built so many cars now, if they already knew that. So I didn't. So what I did was I made two different samples where we used this sort of plastisode foam. This is a 3mm, very close. It's a close cell foam. Very nice stuff, but like anything, it's got its pros and cons. So what I ended up doing was like the tuck and roll. So leather on top, bit of calico at the bottom, stitch the flutes in via top stitch. It's not your proper old school tuck and roll method. And then I inserted it individual little strips, which I think Jamie made some shots of me, individual strips in there, rather than just gluing them on and going up and over, and we ended up with a very nice groove and a texture on that panel that looks really cool. So that's how we got there. Another thing worth to mention is why I didn't go for just the gluing it on like this section. Very difficult to see on the video, so we're not even going to bother with that, but I'm pretty sure some of you have seen this before in cars or on a project you might have worked on, is when you use a closed cell foam and you simply just glue over, when you press, it doesn't recover all the way straight, and you always sit with these little press marks. So the best way to do it is to float it as much as you can, and by doing this way we're locking it down with the two layers. We're putting the material, the foam in between. It's nice and tight, and then you can press on it as much as you want. Because there's no glue, it simply, the foam doesn't have to recover all the way, because the leather simply bridges over it, and that's how you get that good finish. We'll go a little bit later, and maybe in the future we'll try and capture, me and Jamie will work and see if we could get some of those details, to see if we could put it on video to see, to show you what we mean. And this is why we go through these, the extra mile, if I could call it that, to achieve these type of finishes, you know, and surfaces in the end to go in the cars. So yeah, that's a little bit of detail for you on how we got certain panels. Next step, I foamed a little bit of here on the capping. So if you want to be cool and put your arm out the window in summertime, you know, you got a little bit of cushioning over there. Originally it was just metal, a bit of vinyl, and a bit of vinyl over the capping. So I'm putting a bit of foam on. So the next step will be to foam it over once more with a 2mm, just to bring it up a little bit, and also to get rid of this hard bit over here, because if you do knock your elbow or anything against the door, you don't want to bottom out against something hard. So we're going to bring that up. It's going to give us a little bit more depth as well to play with for these panels to sink in. It's going to get that, then the layer of Alcantara, and then yeah, these ones are going to get bonded in, and then it's put them on the car, and then I wait for the billet parts to arrive. So yeah, looking forward to see you next week. See you later.
Thank you, Richard. Next thing on my mind, I'm surprised I haven't forgotten it because it's not in here, and normally when I'm lacking my visual reference I flounder a bit, but the Allegro projects, a couple of prongs of attack on that. Actually, I've been going through a lot of, in preparation for the build, I've been going through all the parts shelves upstairs and basically starting to formulate a list. So at the point we've kind of finished all of the design work, we then know essentially everything that's going to go into that car, a lot of which will have already been purchased. But I start to formulate a bill of materials, essentially everything that's going to go into that car, and then put statuses on them. So whether they need a process like powder coating, Xylan coating, zinc plating, whether those parts need to be purchased, and statuses like that. And actually, this links over, I feel like a broken record talking about Global Workshop, but it links over to something that's forthcoming on Global Workshop very soon, is their Constructors Edition, which is going to have a full bill of materials system, which is particularly good for people who are doing repeat builds, whereby you can basically formulate a complete bill of materials, including labour items. So parts that are inventory items, one-off parts that are being purchased in for that project, and labour items that need doing for that project. And that really, we'll do a separate video on this, but essentially from an organisational point of view, the key to a smooth build is having a list of every single component that's going into that car and its current status, whether it needs a process doing, whether it's in stock, whether it needs to be ordered, whether it's already been ordered, etc. So you've got a really clear view of everything that is needed to crack on with that car, so you don't basically put somebody on building the car and then go, right, I'm going to start this job, oh, I'm missing this, oh, I'm missing that, those bolts haven't been plated, and it goes on and on and on. So that's what I've been on, basically getting the foundations in place to allow us to get on with the builds of the Allegros as soon as they're painted. And then there's two other things on Allegro related. Jim's been on with machining the mould for the splitter. So since when we got that CNC router, the intention was A, to be able to machine some final interior components in various materials, high density foams, tooling board, MDF, and to be able to do moulds, so some of the composite work that we were farming out could be done in-house. And the splitter is a perfect example of that, in that they're just going to be a GRP part anyway, so, and it's quite a simple part in terms of its shape. So we've gone from the CAD model. James has then done all the CAM programming on that to program the toolpaths for the router. He's now routed that out of a block of MDF, which is basically several layers of, I think, inch thick MDF stacked and bonded together. That's then going to go through to the body shop, when in fact it's in there now, coated with a coat of high build polyester. That'll be sanded back, probably to at least 300 grit, I'm not exactly sure the grit level on that. And then that will be the mould. I think that's showing you the trial he was doing on a section of that. That'll be the mould to make those splitters. And then also related is the side skirts. So George has been re-scanning the body. Now, when we did the initial designs, we designed everything, quarters, arches, skirts, splitter, but we didn't have the skirts and splitter made at the same time because we knew there was some scope for different variations in the alignment of those panels when they were actually fitted to the car. They might not perfectly match the CAD. So what we wanted to do was get the quarters bonded on, the doors on, the wings on, everything on the car, and then re-scan it to make sure that the dimension, the length of the skirt, the fit of it to those panels was perfect, rather than getting everything made in the CAD and then running the risk of it actually aligning slightly different in real life. So he's now just doing the final tweaks to the design for the skirts, and then I don't know whether we'll be able to machine the mould for those in-house or not, but probably. So watch this space on that one. Probably make those in-house as well. So that's Allegro progress. In terms of designing things, Luke's been on with quite a few different things, so I'm going to hand over to him to talk about that now. Here's Luke.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the CAD Cave. So this week, has kind of been catching up from a meeting that we had right at the end of last week, where we took all the parts that were coming up for all the cars which kind of come over to this side of the workshop now, and looking at their interiors and looking at what parts we can now start making in-house. We now have our router downstairs, and that's given us a lot more access to either 3D print stuff and then leather wrap it, or machine it using the router downstairs and then leather wrap it in-house. So certain stuff like the Allegra interior, which is starting to come together, looking at the rear parcel shelf, which all the parts can be made in-house, the door cards, which a lot of it's getting made in-house, making small edits to how they come together, how they mount down to the car, and getting them to a stage where we can get Jim to actually start doing the G-code for them, and then they can actually be produced and then handed over to Richard for him to trim. So I've been on with that, as well as a few other little bits. I've done a lot of work on the Jensen in terms of ducting and air pipes and air intake pipes and everything like that. George has done a little bit on that as well. I've done a little bit for Project Kuma as well, matching that of Project One's work previously. Stuff like the roll cage corner pieces, which were on Project One as well, but slight variances in the roll cage means I have to remake them for Project Kuma. The binnacle for Kuma as well has now been prototyped, that's in the car as well. And yeah, just cracking on with a lot of really small but interesting bits. I'm sure Jamie will show you some nice renders as well. And then George has been on with Churchill suspension bits, and as I said earlier, helping me with a bit of the duct work on Jensen as well. And now we're really moving toward the point where we can start putting together interiors and stuff. It's getting pretty exciting. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Luke. I think where we're going to end is on the arrival of the Audi S4 donor car for the Saab project. So if you remember from last week or the week before, we talked about the fact that we are going to do Audi Quattro running gear, basically gearbox, diff, you know, all of the drivetrain from an Audi S4, although albeit with the V8 swapped out to the 5-cylinder. So we have got our Audi S4. We went for a convertible because I believe there's some more strength in the floor pan, and it is quite likely at the moment that we may use the floor pan of the car as well. So we've got that, and I'll leave you with Mark to introduce you to that Audi S4 donor car, and in the meantime, I'll see you next week.
All right, if you want an Audi S4 cabbie, don't mind that smoke, that's normal. Yeah, that's normal. Roof's perfect, I'm not going to put it up because don't need to, it's mint. Yeah, good old, not been crashed, not been crashed. That will buff out, it's all buff out. So generally a good car.
Just genuine chrome here.
This is good. That's protection film. Be careful. We want to keep that on because once you take that off, it's lost that new car look. But yeah. Hold out your hand. You've just brought yourself. Hold out your hand. You just brought yourself an Audi S4. Hey! All right, cash is done. Transfer's done. Laters.